It's now 9:07. Let's call the meeting to order. Okay, with that, the first item on the agenda is public comments. Don't know if there's anyone from the public there, but are there any public comments? Okay, being that I'm not hearing any public comments, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is to approve the minutes from our 11/30/22 meeting. Are there any edits or changes to the minutes as previously distributed?
No, sir.
Okay, hearing no edits or changes to the minutes as previously distributed, the minutes are so approved. So the first item on the agenda is the Ocean Pines Voluntary Fire Department's presentation of the budget. And we have, for the record here, we have Dave Van Gaspek, we have Steve Grunwald, we have Harvey Booth from the fire department presenting today. So with that, gentlemen, I will turn the presentation over to you.
Okay, we're going to go back and forth with some of these items. This is the same presentation that we did a pre-brief. Very little has changed on it. A little bit on capital expenses is the only thing that's changed. So, but I'm going to start in the, and you all have a copy of this. I'm going to start in the upper right in the operating expense general. Member expenses, we came up to.
Okay, so the spreadsheet that you sent out, Dave, is what you're speaking to, the recap summarization. Okay.
Yes,
just one comment there, NF. On the previous, on this other spreadsheet that was sent out as far as the budget package goes, it has some historical information like actuals from last year and so forth. So, Dave, as we go through, let's just kind of make sure we pause at each line item. If somebody wants to reflect on the other sheet and ask a question, we have some time. Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Dick. All right. The first 4,300 is member expenses. That's what we do for our membership. We do very little for the volunteers, but this includes, for example, the annual banquet that we have, which is our awards banquet. And it includes the awards that are given at that banquet. And occasionally it includes when we have training drills and things like that, if we were to buy dinner or lunch for our members that show up for those drills. That's what that category really is. The bulk of that is. Anything on that?
Yeah, I did notice in your previous actuals last year, you spent a fair amount more. I think like 42,000. Was there some unusual stuff happening in the past? Or?
We spent money on hurricane and
member expenses.
Yeah.
If I read that correctly, let me just double check that.
Yeah, 39,428.
You can look at the P&L.
I don't have a.
But
I don't think I have that P&L, but.
All right. What you're saying is, though, from your budget of 9 to 14, that you feel like you have adequate funds there.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Guys, a quick question here. The 2022-23, is that the budget for that year or the actual?
This is a budget.
So
That's the budget.
Know what the actual will be for this fiscal year.
Because we still have time during that fiscal year. No, we don't know exactly what we're going to spend.
Okay.
It looks like on that expense, if I'm reading the sheet that we received year to date for member expenses, we've got about 6,080 in this sheet.
Yep.
Fiscal year 20 to date. Okay.
And how many months?
Yeah, the chart. Well,
That's 6
That-
months
That's through December.
in December.
Yeah.
and
Through
the other
October 6th.
Oh,
yeah.
October? Okay.
Yeah, it's the latest P&L that you guys submitted to me. I dropped it in that column. So,
Yeah,
so
the October
you
24.
want me- Dick, you want me to give you just a quick, the BNF has the sheet that I did, Dave. So we talked a little bit about that yesterday. Basically, Dave's speaking to the FY24 budget column, the FY23 budget column. So the third column, the fifth column. I laid, for our purposes internally here so we can do better comparisons, laid out the audit, the prior budget, and then the year-to-date actuals so that you guys can see the comparison. So the first, second, and fourth. So for Dave and Steve, the 22 audit basically that was approved, blessed, sent out to us is what that first 22 actuals column is coming directly from.
Okay. Good, Steve.
Okay.
Good to compare that.
Member physicals, we require physicals for our members, basically for their health and our liability. And so that's what we have in this column for member physicals, and we didn't change that for this particular year. Under, if there's no questions, under utilities, that's just cost of living increase on the utilities. Repair and maintenance, we are hoping that the repair and maintenance goes down. We had some significant issues over the last couple of years. For example, we had gas heaters in the bay and that had been there quite a while, and the gas lines fell out of the ceiling. We had to repair that. We've had mold issues. We still have mold issues in the building itself, but we at least remediated the mold issues that were in the living quarters. And so a number of those types of expenses. Over to you, Steve.
Okay, moving over to communications maintenance. Requested 10,000 this year due to some aging of the pagers. We do need to get several more of those with the frequencies changing. Any questions on communication maintenance? Okay, moving forward, general fire expenses. This covers anything that we need to replace on the fire trucks, hose, appliances. What I mean by appliances is nozzles, fittings, anything like that. That's what's covered under the general fire expenses. Questions on that category?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
When I look at the sheet, Steve, that you put out, we have, let me find it, 49,000 under fire expenses for next year budgeted. And if I read your sheet right, if I take, it has 45,000 here, but then I take this cadet expense and turnout gear and add those together, that comes to 49,000. Is that what we're looking at there?
No, 4714 is turnout gear
I'm not talking about turnout gear.
on
So
Steve's.
general fire expenses.
Yeah.
Fire, police, yes, because that's all under the 43.
So that's just
Yeah.
49,000 here. So
Correct.
I did match that up correctly.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Okay.
you did.
okay, thank you.
Those are good questions. Yeah. So moving on, the fire police, the expense there is $3,000, and that just includes their gear for the year, coats, anything that they need, flashlights, etc. That expense, $1,000, again, same thing. Helmets, because we do have different helmets for our cadets, so we can easily tell who's an actual firefighter versus cadet. Turnout gear, we did have to increase this with the cost of materials, raw materials going up. We also have some turnout gear that's aging out. After 10 years, it has to be replaced, and we've done a really great job of having this staggered so we don't have to replace all 40 sets at one time.
Okay, on the
Oh, any questions on that?
on the department uniforms, we maintain basically a quartermaster store, and we purchase in bulk to save money. And the money what we planned for this particular year is $3,000 to replenish that store. And so that is uniforms. Those are work uniforms we're talking about. Any questions? Yeah, Harvey, take expenses and billing.
EMS expenses is basically single-use items that we use on EMS calls, electrodes, oxygen equipment, things like that. We increased $4,000 request this year due to just the cost of doing business. We've had a lot of an explosion of cost of many things that we've used. We have a guy, our purchasing agent works on D shift. Jason West, he works really hard to shop and find the best price and find companies that can get us what we need. So we've had an increase of $4,000 for those items. Billing contract went up this year. This is cost due to increased revenue. Mr. Perone, that was with the group last year, in the amount of money we budget for EMS billing. Excuse me. So he questioned the amount of money we budgeted for billing, and it had not changed because of the numbers not changing significantly before. So we worked that out. So I requested an actual 22 fiscal year budget number, which was the in the on the left side under revenue, it says $520,113.80 is actual money collected from insurances and patients. So that is that 41,609 is 8% of that number.
Steve, based on your financial statement here that you put, we spent nothing for the first 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I have from their QuickBooks through, it's not well, I guess October is what, 5 months? Yeah, that's correct.
Is that possible? You would have spent
Billing.
no expense for 5 months?
For what, sir?
Are you on billing?
8%.
What he's looking at.
He's looking at the billing.
I'm not sure how she keeps that. I don't have this. I'm not sure how she keeps track of that. I mean, we certainly have, they basically collect those funds and send us the funds and deduct 8% from those. So that should show up there some way. I'm not sure why it doesn't show up there. That's Lydia that does the QuickBooks, not me.
It might be a year-end adjustment that they do in their accounting books. I don't know, but
Yeah, I'll ask Leah about it, and see what's going on with that. And I'll ask Lydia today when I get back why that doesn't show up.
Is it being recorded net, maybe?
It's
It
possible.
probably is. It probably is, but I can't speak to that. I don't do the QuickBooks. So.
That's to be in there somewhere.
Okay, if there's no questions, further questions on that. The building insurance with Dealey Insurance Company, that has not changed. Training, Steve?
Training, that 6,000 is just for firefighter education. If somebody wants to attend a conference, or if we're gonna bring some people in, it covers food, lodging, and all that stuff if we bring speakers in, but that's what the 6,000 is for. Is there any questions on that? This is volunteer training.
Okay, so Steve, on your sheet, and under expenses, under salary and wage, you have training physical at 13,000. So I'm assuming, again, I'll go over.
What's a separate?
Yeah.
You've got 7,000 here and 6,000. So that's these two combined to make that 13,000.
Yeah, I don't know why they shouldn't be combined, because member physicals and training
Are two different
are
things.
two different things, but it's all under that
But I-
4,300 category.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which we got.
So member expenses.
Under salaries and wages.
So salaries and wages, that's
That training
That's
is for,
different.
for the
That's
career
different.
staff.
This is just the volunteer.
No, I know, I understand that, but under that is training and physicals, that's 13,000 on Steve's sheet. So I'm assuming that's the 7,000 and 6,000 added together.
It's gotta be, yeah,
Okay,
it has to.
because I was trying to match your sheet with what Steve
Right,
gave us.
Right, we have
Right.
two different training categories. One
Okay.
Barbie will go over, and then this one that I'm talking about is just the volunteer.
So it's combined in this budget. And Steve's budget.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I guess it
Yes.
is.
Thank you.
yes.
Yeah, George, those are great questions. I did tie out the totals for each of the categories, and they tie out on each spreadsheet with the exception of the capital needed for next year's reserve replacement and new capital totals are a little different. Other
Yeah, I
than
did that.
other than that, the revenues and expenses in total tie out, but
Well, if
some
I'm
of the-
too much in the weeds, tell me.
No, they're good questions, and you should ask them. I'm just, I did a sanity check before I started, but those are good questions.
Well, they did a sanity check on me, but I never passed it.
Okay, okay to move on?
Yeah.
So apparatus maintenance, $70,000. This covers tires, DOT inspection, any type of mechanical issues that go on with any of our ambulances, fire trucks, et cetera.
So last year you budgeted 70 and this year you're budgeting 70. And based on the audited or based on the actuals on, as reported on the other Stewart sheet, we'd spent 60 last year. So it's up from 10 from what we actually spent.
Dick, it's hard for us to predict that. We don't know when a hydraulic line is going to fail or a generator is going to fail or a truck. It's very hard for us to predict when things are going out. We just replaced tires on one engine. It had to go out for service again. But it's one of those things where it's very hard to predict for us.
Okay, on office expenses, we expect they're going to be about the same. That would include everything from the day-to-day office expenses to the Xerox machine, and all of what Lydia does in the office. Public education, that is the open house that we have, open houses that we have. And that is, in addition to that, that's when we go out to the schools, whether we go out to Shaw, Most Blessed Sacrament, or any of the other schools that we go and do the public education during the fire prevention week. The professional fees are the auditor, the accountant, and our attorney, which we occasionally have to get legal opinions on certain issues.
Yeah, moving on to fuel, you will see there's a pretty substantial increase with that. And really, that is just due to, again, hard to predict. We don't know what we're going to get into as far as calls go. But with the cost of fuel, we found it necessary to just increase that. Questions?
I want to jump back to Steve's sheet. Steve, on yours, you have in the column 5100 facility maintenance, repair and maintenance. We had 80,000 in the budget last year, spent 14, almost 14.4, and next year's budget has 50,000, so it's down 30,000.
That's correct, yes.
We're not expecting to spend that or.
Well, one thing is we're hoping to move along with the building. And so what we're doing is we've been putting a Band-Aid on a hemorrhage for quite a while.
Mhm.
As I mentioned, the gas lines and all the other stuff.
Right.
We're hoping that we can mitigate a lot of that. And with the expectation that somewhere down the road and not too far down the road, we'll be able to have a resolution to the South Station.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Special events, this category, what this covers, again, it's hard to predict what happens with the weather, but that's what this category is. It helps us, we need to bring additional personnel in for hurricanes, for snowstorms. It also covers any extra personnel that we bring on for July 4th, any type of major holiday or event that we do here in Ocean Pines. And with that said, the total last year, 516,000, and the total for this year's budget, 538,909.
Harvey, you're going to take the career stuff.
So compensation related costs for employees. This increases the chief asked me this year to add another employee. I believe in your October minutes that I read, you requested 2 FTE positions. I'm not really sure. I budgeted for 1 additional person, which would be an EMT firefighter position. And then the rest of that could be filled with part-time folks. So this number increases to the 1.243 this year due to cost of living increases, some staff changes, things like that, and then the addition of that person.
So if I could pause you here. So we are increasing one full-time person headcount, which is for a firefighter.
So specifically, sir, we have our full staffing is 16 full-time fire EMS employees. one administrative assistant. The chief asked me to budget for one more person. We're not exactly sure of the logistics, how we want to do that, but I put in this request for one more FTE.
Okay,
At an EMT salary, not a paramedic salary, an EMT salary, which the fire chief wanted to have one extra person during the day, during the week, to be able to fill the fire engine, etc.
Salary for that one. Roughly.
42 plus benefits.
So just to elaborate on Harvey, just looking at call volumes and stuff during the day and the personnel that's here in Ocean Pines, as far as the volunteers go, it's very difficult for us to get any staffed engine crew out if we have ambulance calls at the same time. So with that extra person, it's going to allow us to have 3 people on the fire truck during the day and 2 people on the ambulance. So it just helps us, to make sure that we're keeping up with NFPA standards with time, response times, and all those things.
all right, okay. So I see that, yeah, I understand that. And that was down from what you previously said when we met last. Yeah, I think you're looking at 2, now it's 1. So I see part-time wages budgeted next year, but what is there part-time wages this year?
So last year, sir, I didn't put this in the request, but I did share my calculation sheet with Mr. Phillips and Mr. Viola last year. And so they were able to see that last year we spent $89,000 for filling folks. We had one member of our staff who was injured in a fire in Ocean City, who is a full-time staff member to us. And we needed to cover his shift for a significant amount of time. So last year, we actually spent $89,000 covering the last budget, covering his shift and then the other shifts when folks are on vacation, leave, etc. So this year, I pulled this number over just from what we actually spent in this current year for part-time staff. So we added that to the request just because we do have to spend that money when folks take vacation or sick leave or bereavement or whatever.
So when you figure your full-time equivalents, and now it's going from 17 to 18, in that, are there a number of part-timers in there as well?
In the full-time equivalent positions, no, sir, they're not part-timers in that number, no. Part-timers, the part-time salaries are separate. The part-time wages are separate, excuse me, they're not salaries.
So do you know what the full-time equivalent would be for your part-timers when you sum them up? Do you have an idea of is it a body or half a body or?
I think it's about one and a half.
All right. So
And
really,
it kind of depends. We're at a ridiculous shortage these last few years. So if a part-time staff member is an EMT, they get $18 an hour. If our part-time staff member is a paramedic, they get $25 an hour. So it kind of depends on who that is. And they are allowed to receive overtime as well. So when they work more than that 42 hours a week, they get time and a half. If they cover a shift on short notice, kind of as a benefit to them, they get time and a half automatically. They get paid the same holiday money that the full-time staff does if they work a holiday for someone. So it's hard to predict exactly. So I just went by how much money we actually spent.
all right. So I'm just trying to get a square on the accounting of head counts, paid head counts, which would be a full-time equivalent. So 17 this year, you're adding 1 to be 18. We had less, or I guess you're saying we're looking at 1.5 equivalents for part-time, which would really make it 19.5 full-time equivalents. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. And your part-time, well, never mind. Okay, that's good.
Okay. Mr. Bowman, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, Dick. I just want to make it clear, Harvey, now, unless I didn't hear you properly or whatever, But when you were talking and answering and well done, the question that the committee had on the 89,000 in the part-time, you mentioned that you spoke to me about it and another person. I just want to make it clear, unless I misunderstand, that was not done in a vacuum, and all that part-time and all that FTE and everything last year was numerously presented by you and the fire department to this committee as well as everybody else, correct? I just want to make it clear, to my knowledge, and I won't answer for the other gentleman, you mentioned his name, but I'm sure he would probably say the same, but there was nothing that was just mentioned to those two, me and the other person, correct? This was all presented to BNF and everything. So I'm not sure when you said that as told to Viola and Perone. I'm not sure what you're saying.
So Mr. Viola, what I shared with you and Mr. Phillips last year was my estimate sheet, my calculation sheet. And on that calculation sheet, there was a part-time salaries that are not included in the budget request. And there was a number there. It said last year it was $89,000 for the previous year. So that's what I shared with you. And I believe that Mr. Perone last year requested that you and Mr. Phillips share it with him. That's
Right,
what I'm.
we shared it with, we shared it with the
Okay.
whole board.
Right,
last
thank you,
year.
Steve. Right, yeah.
Shared it with
Okay,
the
I
whole
thought,
board.
right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Steve. Yeah, we're all saying the same, but yes, it was shared with everybody.
Okay, okay.
Thank you, Harvey, for clearing
sir.
that up.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, so after that, Social Security, FICA, et cetera, is just a basic calculation based on the salary amount. So that's where the $95,098 comes from. Insurance deductions. We have Care First, Blue Cross, high deductible for all of our full-time. It's offered to all of our full-time staff. Not all of our full-time staff uses it. So basically the department funds the HSA. They fund the deductible for each employee and or their family as that comes in. So that's where the 34.5 comes from the current employees we have that have insurance or need insurance. We do have one full-time staff member that's starting in February. He does not require insurance, so he does not need to be counted there.
Well, last year it was 39, so you're saying.
So what
The employee's not taking it.
So
it's
what-
Down to 34.
Yes, sir. What had happened last year when I made the budget request, I had a couple of full-time employees that we still have now that said, hey, I think my life is changing and I want to have insurance with the department. Next year, I want the department to have my health insurance. So I calculated a higher number because they were going to come on board. And then they said, oh, never mind, we're not going to do that. So this is actually the way it is right now. And if we add this extra employee, this would be the hopefully the correct number right now.
Part-time employees get insurance.
They do not. They're covered under our workman's comp, but they're not covered under, they don't get any health insurance at all. Insurance and employee benefits, this is premium that we end up paying. It has decreased this year again for the same reason, sir, as the deductibles that decreased. So basically we pay 100% for the family, or excuse me, the employee, which is health insurance, vision, dental, and a small accidental death and disability. And then they pay a major portion of their dependents coverage, and they can get the same vision, dental coverage as well. So that would be the assumed premium for all those folks. That's directly from our insurance carrier, that $145,895.
So that's quite amazing that that's gone down. I mean, I don't know what your actual was there for the last year, but looks like it's gone down.
I made the same calculation, sir, that I did to add those couple of employees last year. So those employees who did not end up taking the insurance, they got taken out. And like I said, our new employee, he's actually a younger man. He's in his 40s, retiring from another job. With his retirement from his other job, he gets full insurance, so he wouldn't need our insurance. So he's been taken out.
Understand, okay.
Our insurance premiums did go up, of course, like everybody's, significantly this year, but I was able to remove a couple people that don't need the coverage. The pension number 99,449, we pay into a 403B account that each employee is entitled to, each full-time employee is entitled to after 90 days of work. We pay an 8% of their total gross salary for the year. So that's an estimate of what that would be. Workman's compensation is reduced significantly. I had a calculation last year that I did share with you again, Mr. Viola and Mr. Phillips, that I was making a calculation based on our bill. This year, we actually had a reduction in the premium. So this 49,500 is the actual premium we pay for workman's compensation for our staff.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's a good number.
Um,
Kind of goes down there, sure is.
EMS training, as I spoke to before, all of our staff are required to renew their certification and license every 2 years. And we as an employer are required to pay for that training for them to have that education to renew their license. So basically all I did was take their hourly wage times 30 hours, and that's what that number is for their training. And sometimes it can be less, sometimes it can be more based on whatever other training they're going to get, but that's the base estimate I come up with. EMS uniforms for each full-time staff member, they are allowed to spend $400 a year for their uniforms, jackets, boots, sweatshirts, pants, things like that. They don't necessarily spend that $400, but they're allowed to spend up to $400. They order the stuff through us, so we're not just writing them a check for $400. So that's the estimate of that amount. And then, as the chief said, we're all required to have a physical. Our physical that we get is a little bit more involved than the volunteer physical, because we all have to drive fire trucks. So we get an actual DOT physical, and that money pays for that physical. So there's my total 1.746 for those estimates.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
good.
Going back to Steve's sheet again, under training and physicals, that's something different than what's in the employee benefits and compensation. Last year we had a budget of 13,000. This year it's 13,000, so it's flat. But year to date, we spent 15, almost 15.1. Are we done training for this year, so we're over budget this year? And
Not spending anymore.
I'm
Here,
Is this ours?
no,
This is the
Steve,
total.
what Steve Phillips did is
This is
took
the-
our
okay,
budget
I got you.
and put it in their language.
Oh, I got you.
And I'm sorry to keep going back and forth, but I was trying to match what you gentlemen gave me with what Steve Sheet is. And
Gas was for 15,096.
that's year to date, and we still have 6 months left.
Harvey, I guess the question is, for the annual training that the career staff, is that done for the year, or do you have training coming up that's gonna cost money?
We do not currently have any scheduled training the
So-
rest of this fiscal year.
So is that 13,000 for next year, right? Or should we have 15,000 since I spent that?
Mr. Phillips, I'm not sure how this money got put together. I haven't seen the sheet, I'm sorry. So I would have to go back to Lydia and say, you know,
Yeah,
what
Lydia is
what
the one
you
that
actually put
supplied.
in here.
Lydia supplied it. It was the October 6th grade,
Okay,
not Great Plains, QuickBooks.
P&L?
Yeah, P&L of those
Okay.
two lines.
okay, I understand. Okay, thank you.
It's described as 47XX, so there could be multiple things in here. It has training,
As we talked about
Just-
before, combining training.
businesses are in there too.
But
We budgeted for
we got 7,000 for
budgeted for 17.6 and we're at 15. So we're under budget. Is that what you're?
Well, the
is that what you're
budget says
referring to, sir?
13. In the other
We're
column,
over budget.
With the-
training and
with the
physical
budget.
says 13,
It says 13 and it says 13.5 and 3,200.
not on Steve's sheet.
Okay, well.
That's,
Good night, guys.
yeah, well, no, this is included in your benefits, which is under, if I'm reading it right, which is this 399. So this if I add it all together, right here, comes to the 399, 373. This up here, you have 7,000 and 6,000, combine those, that comes to that 13K there.
Right.
So is some of that training,
Remember, there's two training though. There's separate training. There's a volunteer training, which is under
4310.
4310. But that's totally 4310, 43. Steve's got that combined under member expenses of 4,300. So,
we remember expenses is 9,000 here, which is, 14,000, which matches with Steve's sheet. Expenses,
yeah,
so that matches.
that matches just this number, but
And then if you take the training down here, that's under benefits, which goes under the 399. And then you take this 7,000 and 6,000, that comes to the 13K that Steve has here.
all right, I'm following 4403, which will be benefits.
Yeah, because if you take your salaries and wages, that matches that.
Right.
Then if you add all these together, that comes to the
The 399,
373. So that's all covered in that 399. So when I come up here to the training physicals, it says 13, which I'm assuming is the 7, and which it says out here training 6,000, physical 7,000. That comes to 13,000. So if that 15,000 is matched up with these codes, then it's over and above the budget. And I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I'm just trying to figure out if the 13,000 for next year is right, since you've spent 15,000 this year in these two items.
So we're looking at, that's the EMS training and this. Because this 13 is correct.
No, we're not looking at, this is all matches on the budget. All of these items right here
So these-
come to this 399, 373. Okay? But then you go up here, you've got 7,000 here and 6,000 here. Yeah, so
13,000.
which comes to that 13,000. And if that, under that 47XX account. So your budget last year was 13,000, which matches this year's, which is flat. But then year to date, you spent 15 in this account, this 47XX. So I'm not sure if that 13 is right, or is I don't know. But all I'm saying is year to date, you spent over what you had budgeted last year in that 47XX account.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. So we're about $2,000 over.
I guess, Harvey, do you think that the
And maybe it's not a big deal.
14,230 is adequate for this
Yes.
coming year?
Yes.
Okay.
We're
I'm sorry,
We're discussing this other.
The 13 is adequate.
That
Is that
was,
what you're saying?
The 14, what he has,
Are we talking? I mean.
we're not talking about that. We're not talking about.
Yeah, forget that. I matched
I have
that all
nothing to do
up.
with what you're
okay,
talking about.
all right.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So yes, I feel that is fine, because we started doing a 2-year physical now instead of a 1 year.
Okay,
Um,
and maybe we spent too much time on it.
and, the training is gonna, that's fine. We're
Okay.
good there. We're good
Okay.
there. We're good. Sorry, I was having a hard time following.
Well,
But we're good.
that's why I started going through this. I saw training here, I saw training up there, and I said, let me see if I can match all this out, and I finally got it. I think.
You got it.
I know.
So what, John Viola, you have a question? Hands up, John?
Yes. Thank you, Dick. Thank you, everybody. I do. And just as a note and everything, it's one of the highest percentage increases, Harvey or anybody there. I just want to make sure I heard right, and I make sure I have it documented, or we have it in our notes and Steve has it. So when you go back to what you have is the pension line, where you have probably 10% increase. You mentioned it's a 403B, right? We know about that. And you mentioned it was an 8% contribution. There is no match. It's a question. Does the does the FTE have to put money in and then it's matched, or it's just an automatic 8% contribution for everybody in the plan?
The FTE.
And
must-
did I hear right that it was 8%?
Yes, sir. The FTE must participate in the plan, so they must take money out of their paycheck, tax deferred, and participate in the plan. And
And then, go ahead, I'm sorry.
and the fire department puts in 8%. It's across the board. There was several years ago, 5, 6 years ago, I don't remember, Mr. Viola, that different employees got different matching rates. Some got, I don't know, 6, some got 8 because they had longevity. I'm not sure. There was a big problem that we got audited and that became illegal. So basically the department decided that everybody, if they participated in the retirement, they would get a flat 8% of their gross salary into their 403B account. So some folks,
Okay, and it's been,
I can
so,
always-
so, go ahead, I'm sorry, Harvey. Go
I
ahead.
can't speak for the individual employee. I know that everybody that gets their 8%, I know they all participate. Some people put in a dollar figure, some people put in a percentage, but they certainly, to get that 8%, they must contribute themselves.
Okay, so, and I think you answered it there, and it's, maybe I don't want to dig into it too much, but the 8% has been there for a while. It didn't just change, or when did it change to 8%? Do you know? And how does that compare to other volunteers?
I've personally been receiving 8% for at least 15 years. I don't remember exactly when it changed. I know why, but I don't remember exactly when it changed. When we started out with employees, when I started here a long time ago, we were part of OPA and we got their matching 3%. When the fire department took over the employees, we got 3 again. There was a couple years where they said, oh, we need to compete with other agencies, so now we're going to give you 6. And then after that, there was, oh, you have longevity, you've been here for 20 years, whatever, we're going to give you 8, and apparently that became illegal. So it's been 8 for quite a while. I don't remember exactly how long it's been 8, but it's been 8 for quite a while.
Quite a while, but you're even saying that others got different from 8 several years ago. Look, I don't want to dig deeper into it, but okay, I got it, because that is a big increase. It's the highest percentage on, and a lot of items went down. Compliments to the team on that, but I just wanted to make sure I had it going forward, and especially next week if we get any questions on it. But thank you.
I'm sorry, sir. It's about the salary change. So if you look at the estimated salary for last budget to this budget, it's the increases for the salary change.
Right.
Because
Depending on how your plan works.
Because
Right, depending on how your plan works.
We're budgeted that folks get a cost of living, and we're budgeting another employee. So that's why.
Right, but all I'm going to say on this, and look, maybe there's some stuff that I don't know, and I don't want to dig deep into this, but if you're saying it's based upon a contribution, then it's not just automatic that it would go up because of the salaries go up. I'm not totally sure how you do the match. I don't want to dig too deep right now, but it's 8% now. Okay. All right. Do you understand what I'm saying, Harvey, or no?
Yes, sir. I believe I do, sir. I believe so.
Yeah, I don't want to dig deeper.
Okay.
All right, thank you, though. I got what I need.
Okay.
Thank you, Dick.
So, John, as John just mentioned, if you look at the budget to budget comparison, some are up and some are down. It's kind of things you'd expect to see when somebody does a real good look, deep look into preparing a budget. Some moves up, some moves down, some moves greater than inflation, some doesn't. And I just did this is kind of a $30,000 level eyeball check here. So I looked at the fiscal year 22 audit, which was $2,082,000. And I look at the proposed budget for 24, just expenses now, is $2,285,000. That's a 9.7% increase. So that's really for 2 years, really, because the actuals are 2 years old when you look at this year's activity and the budget for the upcoming year. So it's growth over a 2-year period. And then I took a look at, okay, what's driving the biggest numbers? And this is looking at Steve's spreadsheet, by the way. And salaries and wages account for $106,000 for half of it, really. So it's salaries and wages. And what we're saying is we have 2 years of payroll increases, and we have an added person in there. Okay, that just from a high level seems fairly reasonable. And then if I look at the next biggest item going up is fuel, $21,000. Well, if you look back 2 years and go out to next year, you can understand why fuel would be up, what's happening there. So it just doing that really high level look actuals to the future budget, nothing jumps out at me as being crazy from what I can see here in that quick view there. Just another analysis here.
Ready, Dick, you ready to move on to the revenue side?
Yeah, so we looked at operating expenses generally, we looked at payroll expenses. Now we're on to revenue.
So EMS billing, this is the amount of billing that we recover from our EMS transports. Harvey, if I'm wrong, jump in. We're projected at 520,113.80.
This is actual
Okay.
for fiscal year 22. This is actual collected money, 520,113.80. And we collected for 1,152 transports. Billing for those was 808,752. Mandatory write-offs, which is insurance write-offs and what they refer to as the Ocean Pines write-offs, was 260. So we were able to bill for 548 and we collected 520 essentially.
So in that kind of number, if you're using that number going forward, this is from your audit, 520?
This is from directly from the billing company. We use Medical Claim Aid in Denton, Maryland.
What period of time what interval of time does that cover?
Oh, fiscal year 22, which is May of 21 to April of 22.
All right. So how are we tracking this year?
I didn't bring that with me where we are this year. Sorry about that. I can have it for you and send it to Mr. Vital and Mr. Phillips, the actual now if you'd like.
I guess that's pretty key, because if revenue is moving either direction, but assumingly with the prices of insurance and things going up, you would think that billings would be going up just by the cost of service. So the combination of increase in fees or billing rates and a combination of level of activity, if that's a growing thing or changing thing this year, that should be factored into next year. So I don't know if just taking the 22 actual number is for the right thing here.
Maybe not, sir. I agree with you. I don't have those actual numbers, but I can tell you for calendar year 22 year to date, we have 1,800, roughly 1,800 to 1,850 EMS responses and roughly 1,200 transports. So the transport number is only increased by, maybe 50. So there should be a little bit of a higher number. I'm always afraid to project too high, so that we don't get in a jam. So I kind of carry it over. I can make a future projection that's a little bit higher based on actual number of transports, if you'd like, but it's not going to be a significant amount of money, I don't think.
I'm confused and I apologize, but EMS billing revenues in the sheet from Steve has a fiscal 22 audit of 495, and you're saying it was 520?
What fiscal year are you using, Mr. Phillips?
These numbers
The only actuals I have is the draft audit report. So if I look at the audit report revenues on page 5 of the financial statements, EMS billings 495,050, 2021 was 476,322.
and these numbers aren't matching up with what you're saying.
But then 520 is, I guess, your budget number. So you're projecting that to go up versus our actuals for 2022.
I guess it doesn't matter, but I just find 20.
Yeah, Mr. Phillips, I don't know if we're using the same time frame. I just have to verify we're using the correct time frame and we're all on the same page. So I will verify that for you.
Yeah, I guess what, a couple things maybe, going forward in the future,
Yes, sir.
if we're going to use two different spreadsheets, seems like we're going back to actual comparisons quite often here. It might be good to, out of your system, which your summary comes from, maybe there's, you can pick up what the audited actuals were and kind of include a column for that too, so we can compare as we're looking at line by line the way you're looking at it here. And then you can easily check the totals on the bottom to make sure they agree with what's in Steve's system. They should, but it would probably alleviate a lot of questions. But with respect to what would be a good number for EMS billings, it again seems to me that just picking up a number that was 2 years old from the budget we're trying to do here might not be the best number. And I don't know what the best number would be, but if it's looking at current activity, looking at what's happening with rates, or taking your best guess, I know this it's hard, but some further look or some further analysis might benefit from just taking another look at what that number might be.
Okay.
Is the company that's doing the billing, are you satisfied with them, or
Yes and no.
good answer?
They do a great job. We submit information to them. They communicate with us monthly with reports of what they've billed, what they've collected, what's not collected, who paid how much. If the patient is not a member of Ocean Pines, for lack of a better term, they'll balance bill those folks. We're not really aggressive as far as collections. They send us a check every month for for what we are supposed to take in. There's some, we want to make some tweaks for what they're doing. There's been a little bit of a change in the law, starting January 1st for some of our patients, which are actually Medicaid patients. So there's been a little bit of change. So we're working on them to see if they can increase our revenue from billing a little bit. So that's a meeting that's coming up. I've already had some communication. We have another billing company that's on the outside that some other folks have switched to that we're gonna talk to on the 17th of the month, and they are claiming that they can help us with their revenue as well. Overall, yes, we're satisfied, and we believe that this is all they do. They only do EMS billing, so we believe that they're being fair. So yes, but I think there's some options for the future that we can increase revenue from billing a little bit. Not significant.
It's always good to talk to somebody else and get some other bids and see what other services people may be giving you that you're not getting today. It's always good to look at something else. So that's a good idea. All right, county fire.
County fire, $300,000. That is $235,000 the county gives each fire company with a $15,000 grant, brings that to $250,000. And then we have what's called pass-through money, which is about $50,000. So what that means is anytime we take the engine outside of the gate, so if we get a call on 589, that's an extra $1,000 that we get from the county. So we average that out, comes to about $50,000 a year, which gives us $300,000. Questions?
How many calls do you get outside of the Ocean Pines?
It's roughly about 50 is where we're at. Now that's hard. That's going to be this year. It's going to change. Because we're going to be throwing different running assignments with different companies. But that's definitely going to change this year. So, it all depends on, unfortunately, if somebody in another area, we don't see it, but there's a possibility of that.
And you get $1,000 if you respond to a fire? Or just about to
Anything.
and anything. But when car might catch on fire and you're there,
We
you
still
get
get,
1,000.
yeah, and we changed that, about 2 years ago, a physical capital piece of equipment had to get on the street. So that means you have to have a fire truck there, you have to have a rescue truck there. Now, a command unit, which I have, my Tahoe, that is, equivalent now. So we can get $1,000, even if I get there, say there's no need for an engine, we still get that $1,000.
They don't get fires 4 hours long, still only get 1,000.
Only get $1,000.
What do you have to offer fire fleet, take your travel? Like, the one time they had 90 blocked off and you guys were there, sending people straight.
So
Did that consider that?
the only reason that we would do that is because 90 is shut down for an accident.
Yeah.
So we're probably up on Route 90 with accidents, so yes.
It's, they go by outside of our first due district, basically. So part of Route 90 is first due.
Yeah.
And then you go another quarter of a mile more outside. So it's kind of like that. So we have an area that's, qualified as our town.
Okay.
When we go outside of town, we go to the racetrack, that's outside of our area. We go down to the racetrack road 113 intersection, that's outside of our area. So that's how they go by that.
It's roughly about there. Oh, you wanna, county EMS funds?
Oh, the county EMS, so every year we fight with the county to change our formula, based on staffing, capital equipment, things like that. So the letter I have from Worcester County Commissioners dated June 30th, 2022 is the funding we will receive for next year. It actually includes an additional personnel supplement that they added. So the total of that is the 638,990. That's an estimate from 2 years ago, again, of what they refer to as out of town run. So if we go on an ambulance call outside of our first due ambulance district and that patient does not go to the hospital, they pay us for that. If we transport a patient from inside our first due area, they pay us for that. It's $190 each, by the way. If we go outside of our first due area, the folks went to the Berlin Nursing Home, I think yesterday or something like that. That's $760 the county pays us. If we travel over 25 miles with a patient on board, which is never, we get 60 cents a mile. And then they pay us $10,000 each for each ambulance, additional usable equipment, base personnel, and then the supplemental funding. So our income from them this coming year is $638,990.
Who maintains all this at your place?
Maintains what, sir?
Like knows what to charge or
Me.
who to go?
Me.
You do?
Yeah.
So you're recording
like if I
every
bust your truck.
call and everything. that
So
you're doing?
what I do, yes, sir. So basically, every time we go on a call, we fill out a report. So if it's a fire call, we do a fire report, and by the county rules, an ambulance goes on that call. We do an ambulance report. So for every single patient transport, every single patient contact, there's an EMS report. We call it PCR, patient care report. It goes into a system called eMeds. So it's all documented in there. From eMeds, I'm able to extract information. How many total calls, how many transports, how many went to Atlantic General, how many went to Tidal Health, how many went to the helicopter, how many patients were treated and refused service, how many patients were treated and released, how many patients were contacted and didn't want to be transported, how many times there was no patient, all that information. And that's where I get the billing information from. So every Sunday, for lack of a better day, every Sunday I look in there, I find all the billing information, send that off to the billing company with demographic sheets that we get from the hospital and a list of who gets billed. They then look into our reports that give them permission to look into our reports, and they bill accordingly based on our documentation.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be stupid here, but shouldn't we hire a clerk to do that? Because aren't you more valuable to the fire department than doing that?
Not a great delegator. It's my responsibility to make sure that all this happens. And we actually, to be perfectly honest with all of you, I'm very sorry. We had a problem last year where a lot of patients didn't get billed to the tune of $185,000, and I found it. So now I'm just going to keep it. So Lydia, our clerk, our administrative assistant, does a lot of other things. She handles the money, she handles the QuickBooks, she does all those things. But this income portion and making sure that our providers that work for us document appropriately. So we get, number one, good care. Number two, good customer service. Number three, payment. That's something I got my arms around.
Just a point. I don't know if you're nervous about it, but you probably ought to be that they're coming back. Because if.
Well, there is-
Get injured in a fire or
I'm
something.
with you. So there is a backup. So Lydia, who works for us full time,
Okay,
Lydia knows what I do.
okay.
Lydia knows how I do. There's another person who works with me on my shift, helps me with quality assurance. And she's the quality assurance officer for Worcester County, by the way. She knows what I do. So there is a
It's
backup.
your fire department.
So there is a backup. There's two other people, that kind of work with me to make sure this is right.
We have that in place, but Harvey is right now,
He's the man.
he's
Got it.
the one that.
Harvey's a little anal.
That's what I was gonna say.
It's okay. It's a compliment, sir.
Okay, moving on, state Amos funding, $32,000. And what that is the 508 money that comes from the state of Maryland. We gotta turn our fire reports in on time every month. If you don't do that, then we don't get that money, and that's what that Amos funding is for. It went down a little bit. Interest, I'm gonna let you handle that, because that was something that we talked about with John.
Yeah, that was just the interest from all of our accounts that we put together, and well, that's about all I can say for it.
That changed because, I mean, back in the audit, it was 106,000. Last year, 6,800. And year to date, we collected 2,800, 27. And we have a budget of 50,000. So I'm just looking at that number, and it seems to be inconsistent. Interest on income.
Well, we're looking at,
Steve sheet again, I'm sorry. Got 160. Got 6,800 in the budget. 27, 23 to date. And 50,000 in the budget.
last year, we weren't counting a number of accounts, and after discussions with the budget and finance team, as well as John and Steve Phillips, we redid that. And we looked at all of our accounts, and that's where we came up with the estimate for the 23-24.
So maybe in there you have interest and other income in that Steve sheet. So I don't know what's happening, but it does jump around up and down. And
Right.
it's showing much year to date. So
Yeah.
just talk to us about the exercise you went through to come up with the 50,000 to so that you're comfortable that you have the right kind of income there. What did you do to arrive at the 50,000 that you think is going to happen next year?
Well, I believe we just looked at all of our accounts that we had. We weren't counting all of the accounts, and we looked at all of the accounts that we had and came up with that estimate for this year.
Didn't, just to jump
John?
on, didn't
Steve.
PKS
Can
play
I
a role?
go?
Steve and John, feel free to jump in.
I was gonna say, didn't PKS play a role in that, Dave? I think I remember seeing a sheet that came through that showed their investment analysis where we were all comfortable showing that number for next year based on the market. You know, the increase in interest rates has, been huge the last few months, and we expect that to continue.
You're correct. It was entirely as a result of PKS. They provided that information to you as well as us. Yes.
Right, and if I could just jump in and emphasize what Steve said at the end there, the interest rates have gone up from basically nothing to over 4. So that was all put in there along with the other stuff. Good. Thank you, Steve. Dave.
Steve?
And that brings us to a total of 1,541,103.80.
Fundraising, we have 0 in the budget. Is that because it's a plan to do a capital campaign? Why we have 0? We kind of skipped over that.
Fundraising, where
Where
I
you,
got Steve sheet,
what number?
3,200. 0 in the budget.
Oh, because we don't know what the fundraiser is gonna be in the budget. Our
That's the car
fundraiser,
rental, right?
correct, at this point in time, it's the car raffle. Yes. Two things. It's the car raffle and it's the annual mailing at the end of the year.
Okay.
So we can't anticipate how much we're gonna make on it. I can give you some past history on that, but, see you later, Harvey.
Hey, George,
Yeah,
and others can tell me if this is correct or not. My understanding is fundraising expenses and fundraising revenue are netted out. The net
Okay.
effect goes into
Thank you.
capital budget.
Harvey?
all right.
If I'm wrong, let me know, somebody, please.
Yeah, if you look at the audit report, Dick, you're right on it. It's a separate fund that they report. So I think that's why they don't put it in this operating schedule.
Okay.
And another thing is it fluctuates wildly. For example, in 2019, when we raffled off a Chevy truck, we made 39,000. The following year, we made 44,000 with the Dodge Ram. And then 21, we made 72,000. And we can never anticipate how much we're going to do, how much we're going to make.
Good to the electric one this year.
No, not a chance. So. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so moving, Dick, is it okay to proceed down to the request from OPA?
That's fine.
Okay, request from OPA this year is $538,909 operating. Compensation $1,746,480.72. Apparatus replacement $195,632. Capital $45,000 for a total of $2,526,021.17.
All right, can we pause there?
Yes, sir.
So, I have two questions. One first, what are your capital purchases? The same as they were last year? What are you buying this year that falls into that category?
We're still in with the air bottles. We can't replace them every year, otherwise we'd be coming to you, with a $500,000 budget request for capital equipment. So we replace probably 4 or 5 of those a year. And
I'm sorry, four or five of what?
the SCBA, which is our breathing apparatus.
Okay.
So the packs, the harnesses are only good for 10 years, and then your bottles are only good for 5. When you look at the cost of this, you're about $7,000 per setup, and that doesn't include the mask, which is another couple $100. So these have to be replaced, and we're at our cycle. I just don't want to do them all at once, because then that creates a little bit. I'd rather have a staggered purchase on this high-end stuff rather than doing it all at once. So Dick, that's what that's covering.
Okay, all right. Now I seem to recall that from last year too. I understand. Thank you. And so the next one was 195,632. Here's where we have a slight discrepancy from Steve's, which was Steve, I think is maybe a $10,000 differential there. What is the right number there?
We believe the right number is the number that we have. Several things changed there. At our meeting about a month ago, John asked us to take several of the items that we had in our capital purchases and move them into the apparatus replacement because they were capital. So we had historically been looking only at apparatus under that category of apparatus replacement. Now we have moved several items like the striker and
The stretchers,
and yes.
load systems, and then the heart monitors have all been moved over to capital purchases.
And as a result of that, it has increased to 195,632. And as you know from the MOU, that is half Ocean Pines and half our fundraising.
Okay. Steve, does that 195,632 square with you?
Yeah, I talked to Dave yesterday and I guess, yeah, the disconnect was the additional $10,000 to $15,000 that I wasn't privy to, didn't have the information on. So I can adjust that, but it, obviously affects our number $10,000 to $15,000.
Okay.
While we're on that, I'd also like to mention, because it ties into fundraising. The MOU says that both OPA and Ocean Pines Fire Department pay 50%. Our 50% has historically come out of our fundraising. And the three categories that we have under fundraising that we sort of mentioned already are the annual fund drive, the reflective sign program, and the tickets for the vehicle, which this year was a Ford Bronco. As of December 21st, the net profit for those three was $107,893. As you can tell from that, there's a significant difference between the 195 that we expect to come up with and the 107 that we're getting. So that is a topic of discussion. It has been a topic of discussion. We're going to have to make up that difference from our reserves, but at some point in time, we have to figure out something different because we're not making, with the appreciation or with the increase in cost that's being incurred in the industry right now for apparatus, we can't keep up with our fundraising. So we're looking at other options. By the way, I'm not talking about a potential building. I'm only talking about this capital apparatus schedule that we pay 50%. Right, John?
You're muted, John. Good talk.
No, I was agreeing. It was good, as they pointed it out.
So,
Okay.
So as we look at capital campaigns and particularly involving the South Station, maybe this is a question for John. Is the committee expanding its idea of a capital campaign to all encompass apparatus and facilities?
So the work group that we've established, which OPV, Ocean Pines Volunteer Fire Department, is represented on, the fundraising, the main piece for that fundraising, hopefully I'm answering your question here, is for the building, which obviously, like you said, is not part of this. If we see something else that the team can address, we will. Other grants we are looking at that could be separate from the building, correct. None of that has come about yet. When it does, we will present, but that is not a part of this here.
That's correct.
All right. So the point you raise
Good
is
question.
that there is a growing shortfall.
That's correct. Yeah. And that's just by way of information at this point in time. We are working with John and Steve very closely on the whole issue, including fundraising and including not just the capital campaign, but also our overall strategy.
Right, and we've brought in the consultants, the professionals to assist with that group, but it's been a total constructive professional working group.
That's correct.
And I do understand it's early on in that process.
Right, exactly, and the team will update as required.
Okay, all right, we can proceed.
So with the total expenses minus the revenue of $1,541,103.80 leaves our total request $984,917.37.
And somewhere in that 984 is the utility utility benefit for volunteers. Is that buried in there or is that added on to that?
John,
That's a John question.
John, do you remember where that's put in?
I got to apologize. Somebody was asking me a question over here. Could you just repeat the question, George or Dick?
Yeah, so the line here is total request from OPA is $985,000. And then down below it has the utility benefit for volunteers of $24,000. My question was, is the 24 already somewhere in that 984 or does it get added to it?
Steve, you got the mechanics on that. I mean, I got my numbers. Is that in there or not?
It gets added to it. So if you look at my sheet, the fifth column, 24 budget, the request is 994,578.
Right.
which is those three
Right.
numbers, but it doesn't include that $10,000 to $15,000 adjustment we just talked about, Dick. So you add the 994 plus the $10,000, their total request is a little over $1 million.
I got the 994. Obviously, Dick, this is part of the process. Next week, we will do this. Steve will probably present if the volunteer fire department cannot make it. That's why we did it this week. But any guidance or recommendations your team has, we will look at. That's part of this process. Right now, right, it's in the GM proposed budget. I just rounded, I have 995, which Steve mentioned, the 994, 578. It's all part of the process, so
Okay,
give it to your liaison to give to us. We'll review it.
okay. All right, so takes us through the reconciliation down to the contribution from Ocean Pines. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, very good. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate you coming in and appreciate you presenting this detailed budget here. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us this week. Unfortunately, we are unable to make it next week.
Yeah.
Steve's on travel and I'm having an operation. So,
Yeah, and Dick, if I could just jump in, first of all, Dave, Steve, Harvey's not there. We've had several meetings before this, obviously, with Steve. Everything was professional, constructive, well thought out, a lot of detail. So I want to thank the fire department. I do believe it's a constructive, solid budget, and we await the guidance from Budget and Finance. And as mentioned, Steve, some foundation of my team will present for them next week. But this was basically the B&F review. Thank you all, Dave, Steve, good job.
Thank you, John.
thank you, John.
Thank you.
And of course, yeah, and of course, B&F.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I'll be out of your way in a second.
It is.
Sorry, I just got too many files.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, for having us. I really, really appreciate
Good
it.
luck with your operation.
Oh,
Go
thanks.
Smooth.
I hope so. Gonna have a new hip in another week.
The old do hip trick, huh?
Yeah, something like that.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, we can thank pickleball for that.
You know, my daughter-in-law is an orthopedic.
Yeah,
She said a lot of her injuries are pickleball.
yeah.
Not just older, but younger people.
Well, I ruptured an Achilles this past week, this past year, early in the year.
Yeah.
And the doctor says, hey, you play pickleball, don't you? Thank you very much. Thank you all up there.
Take care.
Hope the surgery goes well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Super. All right, I think we're all still here. The next item on the agenda is the 5-year reserve forecast, which John and Linda and or Steve, we have no information on that yet, John or Steve.
Okay, I'm gonna just do a quick presentation. I already presented to the board. So I'm just gonna do a quick overview of what we've done over the last month. In November, the department heads met. They were given the reserve schedule from DMA. They've reviewed the reserve schedule and changes were made for the next 5 years. So the majority of the changes were based upon analysis and input from the department heads and certain item life expectancies that could be continued or pushed further out. Some of the major changes, just to highlight, were the golf irrigation that was originally scheduled to start in 2022 is now starting in 2024. So that was a big hit. Golf cart replacement, it was approved in 2022. It was originally on the schedule to be replaced in 2023, but due to lock in the rates for the golf carts, they were pushed forward. Administration renovations, as you can see, are being done now. They were originally scheduled for 2025. So that's based upon the analysis and also done by Steve. We are now within funding percentage determined by the Budget and Finance Committee.
So I'm flipping through my papers here. So when I looked recently, within the last week, I looked at the reserve section on the Ocean Pines website, and I saw that the spreadsheet, which by the way is a very good spreadsheet, and it looked like it was from June. Are you speaking to something else other than what was on that reserve on that website? In other words, it has at the end of year one here, 22-23, first item, it has a percentage of 26.8% of reserve against fully funded.
I think that's the last sheet that we put out there on the website. We have so much out there, I forgot what's out there, to be honest with you, but I redid it. So what you see in the binders should be the
Yeah,
latest.
on tab 16 of
I
the
don't
binder
have-
has
I
a
don't
new
have the
updated,
binder.
yes.
I don't have the binder in front of me, so I.
It's also, it was scanned to the website yesterday, so it should be on the website as well right now. It might be under news and information. I'm not sure where Josh put it. But it was scanned, the whole budget binder was scanned to the website yesterday.
Steve, what page did you say it was on?
Tab 22.
22, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Dick, do you have access to email? I can send it out electronically if we want.
Yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead and send that out. So so on it. So let me, Steve, on the updated spreadsheet, what did we do in the area of interest as far as adjusting the interest for the upcoming perceived forecasted higher interest rates going forward? What did we do and what's in there?
So I put a still conservative number, but we upped it. So put a 160,000 in there for next year. You'll see in the budget. I mean, I guess we're getting in the stuff for the budget stuff, but you'll see what the budget interest is that we have, I guess, when we get to that section.
Right.
But
Dave, can I jump in?
yeah, of course.
So Dick, the purpose of this was to update your committee on the process and what the team is doing. Obviously, the detail and everything, which is kind of leading to, will be part of the budget process next week, and how we tie the entire assessment together. We have been presenting throughout the year. That'll be part of the presentation next week. What Linda was attempting to do, and I believe she did, was to update BNF on what we have done so far and what you will see next week. But to ensure that the Budget and Finance Committee, that we are looking at everything in DMA, because that does have a big effect one way or the other on the assessment. And we took it out 5 years. There are assumptions, just like anything else, which Steve was starting to touch on, that'll all be part of the process next week in the presentations that Linda and/or Steve will do on that.
Okay.
It's consistent with what we've done with the updates during the year, but yes, that is addressed. The main thing is what Linda's pointing out is that the team, all the department heads, reviewed the DMA replacement schedules for 5 years. And sometimes some items might have been moved forward and some might have been moved earlier, based upon their expertise and their experience with all the items there. So that's what we're just pointing out, that we did do all that. We're telling you that the analysis that you're looking at is updated. I don't know if you had it in the binder that will be presented, where you will see the percentage funding for the next 5 years, based upon everything, and to show that we are well within the guidelines set by BNF and the board over the past several years.
All right, so we'll punt on any kind of details with respect to this spreadsheet now till the budget meeting. What day is that on the review, John? I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, I gotta look. Linda, what day did you put that on for? Should be part of the capital, wherever you do the capital.
Capital is on Friday at 9:30.
Okay.
The capital, Dick, is usually the last item, always the last item. Well, as scheduled right now, it would be, this would be part of it on Friday.
Okay.
We will send you,
Well-
Steve and Linda will send you all the documents so that your team can review it beforehand. And it's not in the budget by now.
Okay.
I
So,
sent you the agenda yesterday, Dick,
Good.
for your review.
Yep.
so
That's
if we go on to the website as of yesterday, there's an updated spreadsheet there. So we'll look at that. I fully expect that when we discuss this on, if it is Friday, that there'll be a lot of questions. We'll probably crawl into the details here on this. So we'll just defer that until that point in time.
Yeah, we hope so. I certainly would hope so.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Any other questions at this point in time for that topic?
No,
Okay, all right. So as far as the next item on the agenda is November financials. So for today, I took a look at them, and by and large, I have maybe a couple questions, but not a whole lot. They look obviously very good, another good month. So as far as, rather than going through the details of the budget package, the monthly controllers report, I'll say, let's just take a few questions that anybody has from BNF that they may have collected for themselves as to the current month financials. So I'll throw that out now to BNF to raise any questions while I look for my pages.
Steve, last month, we talked about the accounts receivable other, and you said what it was, and I guess I missed it. What is that? What is an other receivables?
Steve, you're on mute.
Sorry, there is a whole host of components, but the largest is the golf hotel and packages receivables that are due.
Roughly how much?
If we look at the balance sheet, so roughly, I believe about 250,000, but I'm not looking right at it.
So it's almost 100% of it is just that.
Yeah, most of it, yeah.
Okay. Steve, do we expect compliance and permits to continue as it is? You got a 23,000 there.
Well,
For the year.
I mean, we have the expert on the call here, so I'll defer to Linda on that one.
Yeah, CPI has taken a big hit on resales this year. We were averaging about 25 to 30 a week last year. This year if we get 1 or 2 a week, it's surprising. Yeah, the market's just dropping. So yeah, it's probably gonna be estimated the same. Yes.
That was my guess, with the interest rates going up and that. It's not
Yeah.
gonna be-
Yeah, the budget next, presenting next week will reflect a different change to that. So.
A lot we can do.
hey guys, this is Brian. Couple quick ones. That 14,200 in pickleball that was budgeted but wasn't recognized. Is that something you're expecting to land in the coming months?
It should have been landed last month because it was a timing issue last month, so I think it evened out.
Okay, so we're catching up with that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that also fits last month, yeah.
On the yacht club, Steve, can you tell us what the total of the what we've accrued so far for the ORT bonus? I was curious to try to get a feel for a comparison to last year.
Yeah, I
got that in there.
I got a little cheat sheet here. Hold on one second. And I believe believe it's around $150,000, which is pretty comparable to last year, but I'll get the exact number for you.
150, you said about?
Yes, let's see. 185,000 actually.
Okay.
And last year at this time, we had about $150,000.
Okay, great. All right, cool. All right, thank you for that.
Yep.
I think that was it. Me.
So oh, go ahead.
No, I was just wanted to, wanted to see the monthly come in worse than budget. I mean, it's not a lot, but and the year to date is pretty flat. Thought we might see a better number there.
Where was that, Brian?
The Clubhouse Grill
Oh, Clubhouse Grill, I'm sorry, okay.
for the month actual is a little, bit like $6,000 more lost than was budgeted. And because we're doing, we seem to be doing so well there with activity. Was just wondering if you guys saw that and wanted to make note.
Yeah, it,
Other than that, that's all for me. Thank you.
One more question. John, is the yacht club going to close for like February or January or whatever?
Yes, Yacht Club will close similar to last year, same. They'll open up just before Super Bowl or right around there. They have moved the Sundays, if you haven't realized, the last several weeks when they were open to the grill, and they closed the Yacht Club, but it will be the same as last year. Yes, they'll be closed after January.
Go.
so I do have a question on the yacht club. It looks like the favorable variance is really apparently attributable to two things here. One is maybe this is part of what we mentioned last month was facility rental as a favorable monthly variance of $8,000. And last month it was vendor rebates. Is that still happening here, or is it truly facility rental this month?
Yeah, that Steve's going to jump in. He has detail that we spoke with Matt with, but good question.
Yeah, it's still the benefit of the rebates, Dick, that you're seeing there.
I wonder about facility rentals. Does it get caught up in the per head charge for food and beverage, or is there a separate line item for that?
Yeah, the only time they charge that is when there is not a catering aspect to it. So I think that's pretty rare, during the wedding season and whatnot, because obviously they're booking the bigger events that, have the catering aspect to it. That's the way it was explained to me.
Okay, all right. So it looks like the month, the reason why we did this favorable versus unfavorable was that banquets, food and beverage blew it out of the water compared to budget. Looks like we're $50,000 over on banquets and $20,000 over on banquet food and $20,000 over on banquet beverage. So is that just a flat budgeting thing, Steve, or?
Yeah, I mean, we budgeted the budget that went through last year was I guess a little bit in excess of the contract, but last year was the rebound year from COVID with the banquets really going through the roof. So budgeting I guess that aspect is caught up, and you'll see the MSC budgets next week for next year.
Is December a big month for Christmas affairs, holiday fairs? Or is it?
I'm not aware. You aware, John, of any activity down there from a Christmas?
No, they had some. I don't have all the detail. They've had some. I mean, it's consistent with prior years.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I just want to go back with Brian's excellent point on the grill, and we've come up with this, and maybe Steve can remember some of it, but it does, the grill, and you're right, the the business there, the place is packed. If you look at the revenue, when we look at the P&L, the revenue is up. There were some maintenance items that that weren't in the budget, and the salaries are up. Salaries are up also at Yacht Club and all that. So, time will tell, but we're certainly they're doing a very good business. It's up. It's just not flowing to the bottom line as of now. I don't know. I've been told that the salaries for the managers and all that were going to stay at the Yacht Club, and that's what I'm checking now. That even though they were coming over to do the dinner and everything at the grill, so I'm not sure if there was a mix there in the salaries where they charge the salaries. But the salary increase is eating into the margins on the increased revenue. We'll look at it with them. Good question, Brian.
All right, thanks, John. Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, I would guess that when the Matt puts together the budget for the Clubhouse Grill this year, they have a whole year of operating it here, and so I think we'll probably have a much better picture as to labor and other things going forward for the budget than maybe we've had in the past. A question on there's a police grant for $9K in here. Is that a one-time event?
There are several police grants that are smaller, I guess, in nature. So yes, the answer is yes. We do see those during the course of the year. There's a chief has a dedicated grant person over there, and they receive certain smaller fundings from the state for certain programs and such.
So, and anything for next year would be also built into next year's budget, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it's hard for us to project those because we don't know that we're definitively going to get them. So from a budgeting standpoint, yeah, we steer on the air of being conservative there.
The key point to your question, very good question. What Steve's saying is that is a dedicated resource. There has been a dedicated resource. I saw it back in 2017. That whenever grants pop up, and again, that's Steve's point, that the police department and Steve, they are on it. That's all we can say. But sometimes we don't know what's out there because it's not out there yet. How's that, Steve?
Okay.
Hey, this is Brian. I got one more for you. On the reserve summary, under roads, doesn't look like the paving that we've done this fall has been posted yet. Is that bill's not paid yet, or?
Correct. Yeah, it's I saw some
happening.
of them come through. So I saw some of the charges come through in December, but yeah, John probably knows the latest. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So you're right. So they came in kind of later this year. Steve's probably going to see out of the 330,000 that we estimated, he's probably got bills for most of it. I think 2 or 3 roads were not completed. You're going to hear that in my next board update, and it'll happen when the weather is warmer. But correct, you'll see that next month. It's just timing. But we did get approved, and we did spend somewhere around $330,000, $340. Just hasn't hit yet.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
A good question.
Okay. All in all, any other detailed questions?
Good here.
Okay, all in all, obviously very good month. See Steve's summary here, $56,000. We beat revenue. Yacht Club had a lot to do with that. And under budget expenses by $59,000 for the month. So it's year to date, positive 938. So all good continued positive results. So with that, I think that takes us away from budget topics. The next topic is review the Excel action list. Don't know how much of an update we have here going on, but let me just take a quick look at this. So Steve, the first item was OPA finance develop detailed pages. Okay, let's still talk about that when we review the details during the budget for those particular departments that we were questioning where there was a need. As we review that, let's at some point in time address this particular topic when it's right in front of us. Policies and procedures manual, Steve, you do have some updates here. I took a quick look at it, Steve, and I apologize because we haven't dug into this as we probably should. What was this, a procedures manual you were updating, or was this the policy part of it that you were updating?
So I guess it is whatever we want to call it. You know, I think it's called procedural. You know, it's kind of a higher level procedural. Because I mean, you know, I've talked to you about the fact that we do have procedures internally here, but a lot of them would be hieroglyphics to, you know, you guys reading it. So it's more of a higher level procedure of, you know, what type of accounts payable we have.
Let me ask you, Steve.
Yeah.
Doug circulated a policy
Okay.
manual. I think John has seen it. I'm sure you've seen it too, Steve, which is update. BNF has looked at it. Board has looked at it. And there's been updates to the policy manual, financial policy manual.
Right.
And at one point in time, there's a discussion about combining these two together, whether there's a separate one for each. I guess it doesn't really matter. And so some adjustment updates have been made to the policy manual. What you're updating, because I don't have it in front of me, is what you consider to be a supplement to that or a procedures manual. Is that correct? Okay. Okay. So again, BNF will still look at that, and maybe during the budget time where we're together here, I'll have a sidebar with you, and we'll kind of see where we go from here.
Okay, sounds good.
Hey, Dick,
Yes,
I haven't seen that, or is that something just you're reviewing?
I haven't sent it out yet, and again, I apologize because we haven't looked at it. He sent it to me. I took a quick review of it and haven't sent it out yet, but we will. But I will. And
Okay,
we'll-
no problem. I was just thinking if it went out, I didn't get it, or I screwed up and lost it.
Part of BNF's responsibility would be to review that, and we will.
Thank you.
Okay. So the other item on the action list was BNF's recommendations to board on fire department MOU. And I guess that will be a work in process. The team the work group team that John has headed up will be looking at that. I think it's the third component. Now they're working on component 1 and component 2. So that'll eventually be addressed, and BNF made a lot of recommendations there, and we will certainly see to it as when something happens there that the recommendations have at least been heard. So that takes care of the Excel action list. So let me get back to my agenda here. So last item on the agenda, any other comments and questions? Are there any other comments and questions from anybody, including John and Steve?
Only thing I have is the Public Works did a nice job on that North Side Bridge. Looks really good. The lights and the decorations.
It does look good.
And thought it was really nice.
Thank you. I will tell them you said it.
We'll see.
Okay, so if there are no other public comments or questions, having heard none, we will conclude the meeting as officially adjourned. Thank you all, and I'll see you all next week.